All right, folks. We're just a couple days away from the Critics' Choice Awards. This is what is it, the 30th Critics' Choice Awards. So we'll go ahead. I haven't really discussed these much as far as winners. So we'll just go ahead, run through the categories, and I will give some thoughts and opinions here on who I think is ahead and all that jazz. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Let's start with the visual effects category. Here, I think this one, pretty much across the board the rest of the year, I think this category is going to belong to Dune Part 2. I think almost everywhere we go from here, it's really going to be about the only category that this film wins for. Just seems like it's, kind of fated to be that way. I don't quite see a win for something like Wicked or maybe even Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes or Better Man, who are all nominated at the Oscars. But yeah, I think Dune Part Two has this one uh, pretty comfortably. I'll just say pretty comfortably. I don't think we need to go much more than that. No sound category here at the Critics' Choice. Will go to hair and makeup next. This one I was waffling on at the Oscars. I've kind of been flipping back and forth between Wicked and The Substance winning here. Wicked in a kind of not mini sweep of the tech categories. I don't think it's quite going to win like I don't know. I'm trying to think here. Like, it's not going to win film editing. It's probably not going to win score. Cinematography. It wasn't even nominated for example. So, yeah, I don't quite see Wicked doing like a mini sweep, but makeup could be one of those that goes along for the ride, especially since Wicked is a double-digit nominee at the Oscars. It was I believe, a double-digit nominee here at Critics' Choice as well. Did pretty well. So I was really waffling on it, but I looked at it again. I'm like, the popular pick here, I think the more critical darling movie here, though, I think is still The Substance between the two. And it's just going to edge it out here, I think. So I am picking The Substance here. But this could be one they could just, kind of check off Wicked. If The Substance was also not a Best Picture nominee, I think this would be an easier choice. I think Wicked would be a lot more of an easy choice here. But because Substance is also a picture nominee, a director nominee at most places, actually, I think all places except DGA, then yeah, I think Wicked will be close, but no cigar here. I'm going to go with The Substance. For the two music categories, Best Original Song, I'm going to go with El Mal from Emilia Perez. Boy, Emilia Perez has had a rough week, hasn't it? About a rough week and a half. And I think there's a few categories, arguably, that everything that's happened with Emilia Perez, particularly with Carlos Sofia Gascon, everything with her, I think it's going to affect maybe one or two things, but I think that's about it. Um, I think the music category, the original song category for now, I think is okay. We have seen, publicity wise, we have seen Zoe Saldana and we have seen Jacques Audiard kind of distance themselves away. Netflix is pretty much canceling almost all of Carla's appearances at the award shows and stuff, which, totally makes sense and everything. And I think the Oscars, who have in past years, with the presenters, they've kind of given a previous winner like a little 30-second little encapsulation speech that they give to the previous, or excuse me, the current year, I should say, current year's nominees and stuff. And they've already said if they are going to do that again this year, which kind of seems weird they would bring it up. So it's like, okay, are you going to do it this year? Because they said they're not going to do it for Carlos Sofia Gascon. So that would feel weird. It's like, okay, we're going to do it for 19 out of the 20 nominees. It's like, if I were them, I would just cancel that whole stunt. I don't know if there's a way you can make it work where it's just, we're just going to completely not acknowledge a nominee and stuff. It's like, yeah, I just don't, that doesn't make sense to me at all. Um, Anyways, but yeah, for this film and for this category, though, I think it's still going to win. I'm just not really sure what else they would go with here. Like, I don't see them going with the Last Showgirl song. They could, but I just don't really see that happening. The Wild Robot song, that's also not nominated at the Oscars, too. The only two actually that are nominated here at the Oscars are the two Emilia Perez songs. And I don't think Mi Camino has been like a favorite amongst anybody here. So I think El Mal is just going to take it by default. For the original score category, I'm going to go with The Brutalist here. This is kind of a tough one. Conclave, I think, is in play. Wild Robot's in play. Challengers is in play. Challengers also won the Golden Globes when it was nominated. But I think The Brutalist overall, it's one of those movies that I think Critics' Choice, liked it pretty well. I mean, they didn't give it every last thing, like Felicity Jones is not nominated, for example. But I do think that I'm going to go with The Brutalist here to win. It might go on to win at the Oscars. I think it's kind of debatable at this point, but we'll just have to see. Production design. I'm gonna go with Wicked here to win at Critics' Choice. I'm very mixed though on whether or not it's gonna win at the Oscars. I'll save my thought at the end here. I did just last night see The Brutalist. Finally caught up with that one and was able to watch it. The only showtime was like a 7:40 p.m. screening, and I got out of there a little after 11:30. I was the only person in the audience, so that was kind of nice to have a big house to myself that way. But God, the production design and the look to the movie and stuff is so important to that movie. I'm just, and when I was watching it, I kind of afterwards kind of reflected on that and stuff, and I was like, God, I just remember the what was the movie again? I can't remember what the name of it here. The one that won last year for international feature. Uh, God, I can't remember the name of it, but it won. It kind of upset in a slight upset. Some people were calling for it, but best sound. It won for best sound, where it's like a lot of the off-screen sound and stuff to the movie was very crucial to it. I was kind of thinking in retrospect, I'm like, the way that the architecture and the design and stuff for the Brutalist is really key to the main character of the movie and stuff. It kind of made me think that the Brutalist is probably going to end up winning that at the Oscars, but it might not win it throughout the rest of the awards season. Like it might win at BAFTA, it might not. But here at Critics' Choice, though, I do like Wicked's chances here. I don't quite think The Brutalist, even though it is a very highly rated film on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff, and the Metacritic score and stuff is really high too, and everything. I don't quite think that it's like in sweep mode. We rarely see movies in sweep mode at Critics' Choice. It's really an organization that does like to kind of divvy up the awards a little bit. So I think Wicked will still win here. And then for costume design, I think this is a better bet for Wicked. I really don't know what else Critics' Choice is going to go with here. Because like a lot of the other nominees that are up here are not nominated at the Oscars. Like, well, two of them, Maria and Dune Part Two, did not make it at the Oscars, for example. But yeah, I don't think of the other choices. Gladiator 2, I don't think they're going to go with. Conclave, not really. And Nosferatu, I don't think that's quite their movie for costume design. So I think Wicked more easily wins that category. Editing, best film editing. I'm actually going to go because I know a lot of people think, okay, the Brutalist is probably going to win this at the Oscars and stuff. I think Challengers wins this. Now, hear me out. If you look back at this category historically, we really, really often do see winners here at Critics' Choice who are not nominated at the Oscars. I think back to, or ones that win here and then go on to lose the Oscar. That's also common. So La La Land, for example, won here, lost at the Oscars. 1917 won here, wasn't even nominated. First Man won here, wasn't even nominated. West Side Story won here a couple years ago, 3 years ago, wasn't even nominated that year, surprisingly, even though that was a Spielberg venture and everything. So the last 2 years they have gotten it right, and they've gone on to win the Oscar. That's both Oppenheimer and Everything Everywhere All at Once. But if again, just with the rest of that history and stuff, yeah, I like Challengers to win here. Plus, Challengers overall, of course, did pretty okay here at Critics' Choice. It didn't quite grab that picture nomination, one of the 10 slots, but it's up for screenplay, it's up for score. Yeah, I think it's one they'll want to give it something, and editing is a more obvious choice. For those that have seen the movie, it's a lot of tight editing in some spaces and stuff, in particular the last half hour and stuff. There's a lot of the last tennis match, which takes up a good chunk of the last 10-15 minutes or so. A lot of editing going on there, and again, since it's a movie that they like, it would tend to lean toward more of the critics that are voting here having seen the whole thing, which means they would have gotten to the ending and they're not giving up on the movie, which sometimes happens with some contenders. For cinematography, I'm going to go with The Brutalist here, winning this one. I don't quite think there's enough passion for something like a Nickel Boys, which is not nominated at the Oscars, to upset here, or even a Conclave, which is another non-nominee at the Oscars. Wicked is another one, so Yeah, I think the Brutalist, again, it might not have its best performance here at Critics' Choice. I think it's still going to do okay, just fine here. But I think in this case, though, I think cinematography, the safe bet is to go with the Brutalist. Then a couple of feature categories here. Best foreign film, as it's titled, though I believe I would rather they call it international feature just to kind of line up with everyone else. This is a category with the Amelia Perez controversy and with Carlos Sofia, being the face of the movie and stuff. This is a category at the Oscars. I'm starting to think I'm Still Here is actually maybe going to pounce over it. I think it can pounce over Amelia Perez. It's got the picture nomination. It got the actress nomination as well, obviously, at the Oscars. It didn't fare so well here at Critics' Choice. That's why I think Amelia Perez is the one I'm going to go with. Plus, I'm not sure exactly, I didn't triple check this, but I believe voting for Critics' Choice here was already opened by the time a lot of this stuff happened. And yeah, I think Amelia Perez will still win here. Whether or not it's going to keep winning that international feature category going forward, we will see. Now, it does stand to reason, though, that when we do, I don't know if it's like the deciding factor by any means, but technically it is the country that wins the Oscar for who actually wins if you get awarded the prize and stuff. So you're not technically awarding Carlos Sofia. You're not awarding Jacques Audiard if your complaints are with him with the movie and stuff. So I'm not sure if that wins over anybody into picking it, if they still really like it and they're kind of conflicted based off of some of the stuff that's going on around the actors and the stars and the other creatives on the movie and stuff. But regardless, here at Critics' Choice, yeah, I am going to pick it to win. If I'm Still Here wins here, though, that's a sign that, okay, this race is turning. Go ahead and start picking I'm Still Here going forward, because that controversy is sticking. And I think depending on when this award is handed out, it could also be a real turning point to say, okay, was that stuff coming out late enough in the voting patch here for Critics' Choice that we do see that it did affect it enough to where it starts losing even more categories, like a best song and potentially some other categories that we're going to get to here. But we will see. We will see. We'll see. Yeah, there's not everything I think is going to depend on that, but that would be a huge sign though. For animated feature, I think Wild Robot is my pick here. I don't think Flo is going to repeat its performance at the Golden Globes. I'm probably going to keep Wild Robot to win at the Oscars as well. One thing I was kind of comparing to last year, just waffling on that category a little bit, was okay, when we looked last year at Spider-Man, when that was nominated and the projected winner for most of the season, some smart people out there, not me, picked Boy and the Heron to win. But still, I looked at it again. I'm like, well, remember last year that Spider-Man arguably could have gotten into one or two other spots, like score, maybe the sound category and stuff. It only got the featured category. This year, The Wild Robot has two other nominations. It has the sound category and it has the original score category it's nominated in as well, which shows overall more Academy members liked it. Flow, true, is also nominated in international feature, but still 3, last I checked, is bigger than 2. So I think for now I'm going to pick it again to also repeat at the Oscars. We'll kind of look for a few other key signs here as well. So for Critics' Choice, though, I think Wild Robot is going to be my pick. Next up is the ensemble category. I'm going to go with Wicked here. I think Wicked is a movie that critics have still really liked, even if it's not like top of the heap as far as compared to other movies, as far as Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes and all that. I think it's still a place they want to give this movie a major prize, and ensemble I think is going to be the fit for that big prize. You could argue Amelia Perez here. You could argue Conclave. You could even argue Nora, since that does have a pretty not sizable ensemble, but a really cohesive ensemble, really an ensemble that works well together and stuff. That being said, I do think Wicked, I think, will be the winner here. It's not a large ensemble, but it's one that, still kind of works relatively well together. I did have the argument early on, that it is more of a two-hander. Every time I've made that argument, it seems the award show, like SAG, for example, they kind of disregard that theory and they nominated it for almost everything it could have been nominated there at SAG. So, yeah. Screenplay categories next. Original screenplay. I like Anora's chances here. The Brutalist could be an upset surprise winner here if it lines up going with also the picture category. We will see. But I think Anora for now is my win for screenplay. For adapted screenplay, this is a pretty big place to award Conclave. Conclave was amongst the most nominated films here, if not the most nominated. Just off the top of my memory, I can't remember who all got most nominated here at Critics' Choice because this was, going back almost 2 months ago, the nominations came out. So yeah, it's been a minute, but I think this is the big place to award Conclave. I don't love its chances in Best Actor here. I don't really think supporting actress it's going to go to it. She was nominated here, right, Isabella? Yeah, she was. I was like trying. It was SAG. She was missed out on. That's right, SAG, not Critics' Choice. But yeah, I think Conclave. Yeah, I think this is the big place to award Conclave here as adapted screenplay. For supporting actress, Zoe Saldana, I think will win here. Again, even if the Amelia Perez real life controversies and everything starts to strike here, I don't see why voters would take it out on Zoe Saldana, especially since she was very early separating herself off from Carla publicly. Her performance, yes, she has many scenes with her, but it's not exactly a thing where the performance is codependent on her. She has those scenes early on where she's not with her. She has some scenes later on without her, and so on and so forth. And I think too, it's just kind of a moment to award her. She's been an industry mainstay for a quarter of a century now. She's been in huge franchises. She's worked with everyone on big films, small films, television. She's really done so much, and I really think Amelia Perez, also being amongst the more nominated films here at Critics' Choice, I think this is still a spot to award her. And it's a place where, yes, even if you are mixed on the movie, even if you're really not digging, a lot of the stuff happening outside of the movie and stuff, this is still a safe place to kind of award the movie something and say, hey, just because this other stuff is going on, it doesn't mean that we have to totally punish the movie entirely. So, my opinion at least. In supporting actor, Kieran Culkin, I think, will win here. A real pain. I have to remind myself here. It is a picture nominee here, right? No, it's not. Okay, I couldn't remember it because I was like, again, with so much going on, it's like DGA or a PGA, excuse me, rather. PGA, yes, it got in there, but it obviously missed Best Picture at the Oscars. Also missed here. We don't always see that lineup though, with like, okay, your acting winner has to be in a Best Picture nominee at Critics' Choice. It doesn't always happen. I'm also not sure who would upset over Kieran Culkin. Like, is Guy Pearce going to gather enough votes to beat him out, being in a Best Picture nominee? Is it maybe Edward Norton, who's also in a Best Picture nominee here, and everything? Could Clarence Macklin gather enough? Because Sing Sing arguably did better here than it did anywhere else. I think total nominations wise, that is true. But I don't think there's enough steam for that, so I got to go with Kieran Culkin by default. In Best Actress, I'm going to go with momentum here. I'm going to go Demi Moore. The Substance is also pretty well nominated across the board here at Critics' Choice. It's just, even though the Golden Globes was almost a full month ago now, it is hard to say that her speech has been forgotten. I don't know if you can say that with a straight face. It's really a spot where, I think she has continued to kind of draw from that momentum. She didn't, miss out on any key nominations the rest of the way here. The Substance, likewise. Really, you could argue maybe it underperforms slightly at the Oscars as far as total nominations, but even then, I still think it's in fine shape. I think Demi has the momentum here. And if anyone's going to upset her, I would go with possibly Mikey Madison for Nora, but she did win, a good number of critics' prizes and stuff, but I think Demi has the momentum. And when we get into this type of scenario here, I think it's a case where you can say, yeah, momentum can rule over a few other things. So I'll go with that. In Best Actor, I think Adrien Brody has this. It's a close call. Timothée Chalamet could easily win here as well. Complete Unknown might not have a spot to really award, in a major prize or anything. The Brutalist, we think, will have maybe one or two others. So it really was a close call here. But I think Adrian Brody will win this. The Brutalist, he kind of is the face of the Brutalist, more or less, acting wise and stuff. He's in almost every last scene. It's a long movie. It's a very involved performance. It's really, I think, one of the key cogs that makes that movie work. So I think it's a spot. Yeah, I think Adrian Brody will win here. And let's not forget, and I didn't make this argument with the Golden Globes, and I ultimately did not pick him. It probably would have helped me if I had picked him, and kind of considered that argument more. Let's not forget that when he won for The Pianist over 20 years ago, he was only his only win was at the Oscars. He was nominated at BAFTA, nominated at SAG, nominated at the Globes, was not nominated by Critics' Choice, surprisingly though. So if you want to call this kind of a makeup prize too, you can also tack that little momentum thing on. How many voters are conscious of that? I'm not sure, but I think it's something to bring up at least. For Best Director, I'm going to go with Brady Corbet for The Brutalist. I hate to say it's a locked category at this point, but I just really have a hard time arguing for anybody over Brady Corbet, especially after seeing the movie and stuff, especially with now Amelia Perez kind of starting to fade with its like more significant chances to win a major category like director or picture. I just don't see an argument for Jacques Audiard to win. Sean Baker, I think they like him, and I think eventually he can win a category like this, but I'm not sure if the full passion is behind Anora. It is a critical darling movie, that is true, but I don't quite think they're going to pick it here over Brady Corbet for The Brutalist. And for Best Picture, this was also a close call for me. I could really pick Conclave here in an upset win. It could take it off and kind of surprise us. And then from there, what if it wins PGA? What if it wins BAFTA? Then it could be on a track to still win Best Picture, even without the director Edward Berger nominated at the Oscars. Still a viable path. And then you have Anora, which is the big critics support group here. It's the big critical darling of the year. Won the Palme d'Or, has been nominated most everywhere. That and The Brutalist were really the two movies at the Oscars that got everything you needed. It got the film editing nomination, which traditionally you need. It got the screenplay nomination. It got the director nomination. It got, at least one acting nomination. Anora ended up with two. Brutalist ended up with three. And, of course, Best Picture. So, really, I think Anora is going to be close here. And I think it can ultimately possibly eke out a win here. But for the moment, I kind of considered it, and I'm like, I think there is still some momentum, though, with The Brutalist. And, again, it is still a very highly respected film critically and stuff. It's won a few critics' prizes here and there for Best Film. Anora has won its fair share as well, to be, honest, though, to look at it in the apples to apples comparison. But I think The Brutalist will win. It's a very close call. I was really close to picking that. And now Anora, let's not forget going forward, it's probably not going to win SAG Ensemble, but it could win for Best Actress there. Because we do see her, Mikey, nominated in a film that's up for Ensemble. Demi Moore with The Substance is not up for Ensemble, so I would just caution us on that. BAFTA, with its more European sensibilities, Anora kind of fits a little into that. And if the BAFTA voters do like Mikey a little bit more than Demi, then we could see that take off as well. And I wouldn't be shocked to see if maybe Anora, I don't think I can win SAG, and I don't quite see PGA coming into the picture either. No, I think really its last shot is probably going to have to be BAFTA. If it can win, yeah, obviously if it wins anything on top of BAFTA, then it can really, come back into the picture and be a front runner for the top prize of the Oscars too. But it's really going to have to surprise us. I think it's really going to have to overcome films like Wicked, maybe even A Complete Unknown, which could be a dark horse contender right now to win SAG. It's going to have to overcome movies like The Brutalist at PGA, feels like a possible winner there. Conclave at PGA is also, I think, a really, really sneaky pick there. That could really be one that, it's a well-liked movie, it's a preferential ballot voting system, and Conclave could benefit from that the same way that something like The Big Short benefited from that almost 10 years ago when we had a very, very split year as far as what was winning what at the major award shows and stuff. Now, with a lot of stuff going on outside of the races this year, between the LA fires, between Donald Trump being reinaugurated as president, now with the Amelia Perez controversy, and seemingly other controversies that have come up and then been quiet, kind of quietly dismissed, like the AI controversy and the Brutalist, which, seeing the movie last night, I wasn't even really thinking about it at all. It didn't really factor in at all. What was the other major? Oh, there was a thing, kind of lasted a day and then everyone kind of forgot about it. Fernanda Torres also, I guess, a resurfaced thing, kind of like these tweets with Carlos Sofia Gascon, which they really don't resurface. It's just somebody finally decides, hey, let's go ahead and pull the pin on this grenade and throw it out there. Because I'm sure these were discovered, probably over a month ago. But discovered again, to use that term loosely. But with Fernando Torres, though, it was a kind of a blackface controversy with I believe was aimed to be a comedy skit back in on Brazilian television. This is going back years and years. But anyways, it's just overall it has been kind of a muddy season outside of it. And we really have not seen, there's been no televised award shows, no major industry prizes awarded since the Oscar nominations. So it's just been a lot of hot air and a lot of back and forth and a lot of controversies spewing around and stuff. And it's going to be exciting to finally see one of these televised shows again, just to see, okay, what the hell does all of that add up to? What, if any of these controversies stick, what do they affect? What actually happens across some of these award shows and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. So real quick, I guess I'll throw out some words on the Brutalist. I gotta say, this year some people have argued this. They've been like, this is one of the worst years for Best Picture nominees ever. I'm hearing this a lot from a lot of people that still really, really hate Amelia Perez's guts, and they kind of see that as the low point and stuff, and everything. And it's like, okay, well, this year amongst the Best Picture nominees, I haven't seen every last thing. Like, I haven't gotten to Nickel Boys. I haven't gotten to I'm Still Here. The Substance is probably my next one I'm going to see at some point. Hopefully that'll be in the next couple weeks. It is on streaming, so I should be able to get to it relatively easily. But the ones I'm kind of passionate about most, I would say, probably Wicked is probably my favorite film I've seen this year. Brutalist, though, I got to be honest, this one's actually really, really up there for me. I really had a very, very, very passionate viewing experience with this. Not like I came out and thought it was like the best movie of the year, but I seriously think this is great, great filmmaking. I guess there's a lot of places I could start here, but I gotta say right off the bat here, I kind of like The Brutalist to win PGA, because how the hell do you make an epic over 3.5 hours long with this big a scale, shot on film with a cast like this, and do it for $10 million? How do you do it? It's incredible. It's an incredible feat. This movie looks like $1 billion, and it's shot for what, most of these hedge fund people have in their bank accounts. It's crazy, absolutely crazy how Brady was able to do this. And, I'm sure, when we talk about, how do you get the cast and stuff, I'm sure a lot of them had back-end deals and stuff. But still, regardless, I think just producing-wise, getting this movie shot and everything, I just think a lot of the people that are voting in the Producers Guild, I wouldn't be shocked if they actually, just look at it in that way and say, this has got to be one of the best films of the year, just on that basis. So, that just blew me away. The cinematography in this movie is gorgeous. There's several mesmerizing shots throughout. Great locations. I kind of hinted at the production design. The whole architecture thing, I'm not really an architecture guy in real life or anything. I'm not really fascinated by that. I might look and say, oh, that building looks fucked up or something if it's a more unique design to the building or whatever. But like here, I was on the edge of my seat, particularly the scene where Adrian Brody's character displays his models and stuff. It's right before the intermission, or roughly the halfway point of the movie, to I guess the town council or whatever, the people that would actually vote for all the developments to go through and stuff. I was on the edge of my seat as he's talking about the 4 buildings within one and stuff and all that in the big community center that they want to build, which is kind of takes up most of the back half of the movie. Um, so all that stuff was just really great. Getting all the stuff right for the time periods and stuff that it goes through. It goes from like mid 40s to up to the 80s in the epilogue and stuff. They get a lot of that stuff right. So yeah, just the aesthetic parts of this movie really really solid. Great editing. A couple there's maybe, if I want to be really 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 nitpicky, there's a couple shots that I felt maybe lingered a bit too long for my taste, but other than that I can't really I can't really editing wise think of much that you needed to change or anything. So many great, there's so many long takes and long shots and everything where it's like the camera kind of sits still. Eventually it might move in a little bit and then move back out, and it's just very very light in that way. Or there's panning shots, or a little bit of everything, trucking shots in some cases. So a little bit of everything there, cinematography wise, but it's truly, truly a wonderful, wonderful job there. And then we get to the acting, and Adrian Brody, God bless him, what a trooper for this movie. He goes through a lot in this movie, emotionally, sometimes physically, goes through a whole bunch. Boy, what a performance! It's hard to argue that this is like the best performance of the year. It's really hard in that best actor category to argue that there's anyone better than Adrian Brody. It's really hard to. He's fantastic through and through. And then Felicity Jones gets some really nice moments to shine as his wife. Again, she's really more restricted to the back half of the movie, aside from some narrations on and off through the first part. In particular, there's one of her last scenes. She gets a very, very big, moment and everything, which I can understand. Some people have criticized that scene for being, a little over the top and being a little soap opera dramatic-y a little bit. I didn't really get that feeling when I was watching it. I was kind of more invested in what was happening between the characters and her kind of standing up to a villainous character in that moment and stuff. And just to see how some of the characters reacted to that was just, even though you can see it coming, you're just like, oh my god, that person is not gonna, oh, they just did that. That's pitiful. Absolute douchey move. And it's like, yeah, that's one of the characters. I won't give away who does what in that specific scene because it's kind of late in the movie, but yeah, that whole character is just douchey from start to finish. You can just tell. Anyways, but yeah, and then you've got like Guy Pearce, who's really actually a very fascinating character to watch through the movie, where you can see him kind of have that dark side, and right away his introductory scene is him showing his shouting and kind of angry side and stuff, and yet in the next moment that you can see him, all of a sudden he's this more prim and proper, respectable, really really more down to earth character. Well, down to earth to an extent. He's still a rich, snobbish asshole at times and stuff, but doing stuff that's like, making a whole party of people go out in not freezing cold, but certainly colder temperatures in like late December or something. Stuff like that, where it's like, okay, yeah, you can see where this guy's a little high on his own supply and everything. But yeah, that's a fascinating performance and very well modulated by him. Arguably one of his best performances and stuff. Really across the board, a lot of these performances are arguable career bests. It's hard to say that with Adrian Brody though, because you do have like his pianist performance, which is just, that's something else though. I haven't really rewatched that movie in years, but I just remember being totally mesmerized by his work in that movie too. Particularly doing like all the piano stuff in that movie. It's like, I don't know. It's tough. So good for him. That he also, can have a huge movie like this. And yeah, the epic scale of it and the epic length of it and everything. Surprisingly, I didn't have a huge problem with the runtime of this movie. I was fine with it being the length it was. I was fine with it showing the scale that it did and kind of being a maybe not whole life portrait of Laszlo, the main character. But you certainly get in the his journey to America, the whole immigration story and everything. I thought that was really, really well done. And, it really is a nice tribute to immigration and stuff, which, I think could also, if we're talking, politics stuff of what's going on in real life and stuff, with all the stuff with Trump being reinaugurated and all the deportations and stuff. I can see a path where this movie kind of gets energized from some of the voters that don't like all of that going on, and they see the immigrant experience, for some of these people you have people like Laszlo that, get somewhat embraced by the immigration experience. And you have obviously some people that don't. And I can see some voters being energized by that based off of real life events going on kind of as we speak, actually. So, yeah, so that whole part, and everything. Personally, back to my ancestry, it also comes from immigration and stuff. So, whenever I see that in movies, it's like there's always that little nostalgic twinkle where it's like, yep, thinking back to great or great 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 grandparents or whatever it is at this point, it's like, yep, they probably went through something similar, and everything. And yeah, everybody's commented on it, but that one shot where we get to see the Statue of Liberty and stuff, it's almost right off the top. It's a big, extended, long take that just kind of goes through and follows the character till he finally gets outside, and it's like, what's going on, and then we see what it is, and it is the Statue of Liberty and stuff. It's like, yeah, nice way to start the movie. Nice way to start the movie. It's not literally the opening shot, but one of the opening shots of the movie. Yeah, but anyway, get back to the only thing really, there is one part, it's in the back half, but there's a little section of the movie where they go to Italy. That part kind of felt very draggy to me. That's the one part in the movie where I was like, okay, I'm starting to get a little tired now. It's like, because not only was I seeing this movie kind of later in the day than I usually do, which was fine, and I was actually fine by that. I wasn't like tired just because it's later in the day or anything, but it's just by that point, yes, I did kind of feel like, okay, this is starting to slow back down a little bit, and I was a little that was the one part where I was kind of like looking at my watch, like, or I don't have a watch, but would have been looking at my watch, but if I had it, and I would have been like, okay, how much longer now and stuff. It's like, it feels like we should be starting to wind down here a little bit. Instead, we're now going to Italy, and now there's this whole, and a lot of the stuff, like there's this kind of dance sequence and party sequence which doesn't feel very necessary. There's a scene there that some people probably won't like that involves sodomization that was really kind of off-putting. It's done in a way where it's not like explicit, like extremely distasteful or like extremely like graphic, and you're like shielding away from the screen or anything, but it was just kind of the way it was shot and the way it was staged and stuff. It still did come off as a little unsettling and a little like, oh, okay, that's kind of unpleasant and everything. But yeah. So yeah, that kind of stretch of the movie was the only part where I was like, it was a little draggy, where I did feel like, okay, this didn't feel totally necessary, this didn't feel totally necessary and everything. But yeah, other than that, I really didn't have too many problems until we got to the epilogue. The whole epilogue, which is, luckily it's only like 4 or 5 minutes of the movie, it doesn't ruin it, but man, that epilogue I was not a fan of. Without getting into way too many specifics about who's there and who's not there, I'll just say that there's old age makeup. Now, normally I'm pretty good about, saying, oh, there's a, good use of makeup. In this movie, I think 98% of it, when you show the characters kind of slowly, gradually aging, particularly I think Guy Pearce is the one they do the most work on showing a character age. It's done, very, very, well, I shouldn't, I'm trying to think of the word here. It's done, trying to think of the word here. It's like, it's not explicit. It's not, in your face. It's very, God, I wish I could think of the word right now that I was trying to place on it that perfectly describes the makeup progression through the movie. It's, it's there. You might not notice it right away until you get to like a close-up shot. Like there's one shot of Adrian Brody, the first time we've seen him, when we've had a little time jump in the movie, and you can see, oh, yeah, you can kind of see just a little bit more, a few more wrinkles on his face and stuff. It's like very, very slight, very, very well done in that way, where it's not overly dramatic. Sometimes I'll have that issue with makeup in movies where you either overdo makeup or you age characters way too quickly or way too slowly. Here, the progression of the aging and stuff, though, I thought was just pitch perfect. It's like, yep, they do age just ever so slightly, and you notice it, and you accept it. And when we get to that final sequence, the character that has the old age makeup, it looked like a human frog. It looked awful. It's like the $10 million ran out right when they got to that sequence, and they didn't have anything left over for the makeup department or something. It was just uncanny. I was like, this is embarrassingly bad. Luckily, there's only like one or two like good shots where you can kind of see it in definition or whatever. But it's like, oh, it just looked miserable. It just looked terrible. I mean, the character just, again, it looked like a human frog. It looked despicably bad. Like, that's the only part of the movie I'm like, oh, Lord. And there's the whole, like, speechifying thing that happens at the end there and stuff. And I was like, I was just kind of checked out by that point. I didn't really, that's the only part of the movie that felt uh, a little artsy fartsy as we get to like some 80s camera stuff and like some of the editing changes in that sequence and stuff, which I get, you're trying to differentiate it from the rest of the movie with, the biggest time jump we've had in the movie, but it was just a little too uh I don't know. I don't want to say like, it was like a huge pompous moment or anything directorially, but yeah, it was the one moment where I'm like, okay, that's a little too much. Luckily, again, it's only like the last 5 minutes, so it doesn't totally ruin the movie. Also, I got to say, the score to the movie is so good, and it's like heart pounding at times, and there's these little off things here and there, kind of ambient sounds that kind of fill the soundtrack once in a while that could be described, because I remember reading the score as kind of like slightly haunting. I think somebody described at one point, and I was like, I didn't hear anyone else really describe it that way. When I finally got to it, I'm like, well, some of those ambient songs you can kind of describe as ever so slightly haunting or whatever. But other than that, yeah, I didn't really pick up that sense. But a truly terrific score here too. And then the song they play over the end credits just had me scratching my head. I'm like, okay, we're at the end. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but why not just end the movie on traditional score over the end credits? It just didn't, just for whatever reason, I was feeling really nitpicky. That probably just because everything else in the last 5 minutes just didn't sit well with me, and I was just like, oh, okay, this ending kind of stinks, but not for me. But anyways, other than that, though, I really did not have that many problems with it. The movie feels it almost does feel its full length. It did feel like a 3 hour experience to me when it's in real life 3.5, and that's with I did see it. The intermission was included. I'm not sure if there's any screenings for this movie out there in theaters at least that do not include the intermission. But it was kind of nice. Yep, you can get up, go to the bathroom, do whatever you got to do, refill your popcorn or whatever, what have you, and then go back. Gives you a good 15 minutes to do that. But still, I was like, I really did not really have too many times there where I was like, okay, this needs to rush. I thought the pacing generally was still really good. I know some people have complained about the second act. It's like, or I shouldn't say second act, the second half of the movie, the back half of the movie, because the first half is more like plot point, and then the second half, the back half, is more, fewer plot points, but we still get good character moments. We still get character progressions, a character, particular, without it being a huge, I don't think it's a huge spoiler to say it because it's been talked about, but it's, we see, the Laszlo character become even more and more addicted through the movie to heroin and to other potential substance things like drinking more and stuff and everything. So we start to see more of that, and we see how it affects him in the second half. We see him become more belligerent at times. Other times he's more emotional, and it's and everything. And particularly, there's one thing they do in the third act where I was like, holy crap, they are not going to do that. And luckily, they didn't pull that stunt, but it's still a scene that some would say is kind of a cliche when it comes to substance addictive movies and stuff, movie scenes. It's like there's sometimes a little ploy that they use there, so some people might complain about that. I was okay with it. It didn't really make me like say, oh, another cliche or whatever. I wasn't that critical of it. Yeah, I'm trying to think anything else that I really like didn't care for, or like any parts that I thought were bad or anything. Not really. I mean, it really was, as a whole experience, it is something to behold. Incredible filmmaking. Brady, absolutely. I applaud Brady Corbett 100% for doing this the way he did. Being able to shoot without that intermission, basically a 205-minute movie, 210-minute movie, whatever the hell it is, without the intermission and end credits, the way that it is, and to get it out there, and for A24 to distribute it, and for everything just to be the way it is in this movie, it really was a really, really great thing. And I will say one other thing. The movie almost got me emotionally too with the very first scene in immediately following the intermission, when Laszlo is finally, where we do see Felicity Jones finally introduced, and him, Laszlo, who hasn't seen his wife in over a decade by that point, I believe, roughly. I don't think they give an exact year of when he got separated from his wife due to the occupation in Hungary, but or Poland or whatever, wherever the hell he was from. I thought it was supposed to be Hungary, but whatever. And everything, and the whole getting away from concentration camps and everything. Just that scene in particular, the way it was shot, and the way that it's staged. In other movies, it would be like this huge dramatic, like huge camera push on, the two star-crossed lovers or whatever, reuniting, and there'd be that, embrace sequence or whatever. And, it'd be this big, production part of the movie and all that stuff. Here, it's just one little thing. We pan over and we follow Laszlo, and they meet and they discuss and they talk and they embrace and stuff a little bit. And it's so realistic. It just kind of got to me, and I almost bust out in that scene. I almost did start weeping. It was so good. I don't know what it was. All of a sudden, I'm just like, why am I so emotional this? Because it did feel very, very realistic. It felt like, holy cow, that's how it happens. And I for whatever reason, that just really, really struck me. I don't know why, but yeah. So overall, it's a 10 out of 10. It's one of my favorite films of the year, probably a top 2 or 3 pick right now. Yeah. And it's one of those epics that I think sometimes when you see these kind of bigger movies later in the season and stuff, you can kind of be let down. I was not. This movie did not let me down. I really, really enjoyed it. And it's not going to be a movie that I'm going to like go back to and like rewatch a ton, because it is an investment to, sit there for 3.5 hours or roughly 3 hours, 20 minutes without that intermission. But whatever it ends up being. But I would totally go on this journey again with Laszlo. It's an incredible piece of filmmaking, especially again, technically speaking. So, all right, I think I've praised the movie enough. That's enough. We'll move on. So, that's all I got for today. We will probably be back. I don't know. Do we want to come back? Maybe we should come back on Friday night after the award show is over. That probably is not a bad idea. Especially again, this is going to be our first one in a while. We've got DGA and PGA the same weekend here. Actually, the same night. I think they're both coming Saturday night. Let me find my dates here. Hold on. The 8th? Yeah. I think that's that should be Saturday night. Otherwise, we've got a couple other guilds coming up next week. The smaller ones, BAFTA will be not this Sunday, but the following Sunday. And then the weekend after that, I believe, is SAG. Yep, the Sunday after that is SAG, and the Sunday after that already is the Oscars. So obviously, we've got, some bigger moments to come here. We've still got some momentum changes that can happen here and there in some races. So it's going to be an exciting. I don't want to say we're in the final stretch here, obviously, but because we've got still a little ways to go. But it's going to be fun to see where things end up here in the coming stretches. My camera will turn off. Let's try that again.